Join over 5,000 attendees for the largest AI event in Asia, Super AI in Singapore, February 28th to 29th, 2024. Edward Snowden, Benedict Evans, Balaji Srinivasan, and over 150 others will hit the stage, joining the industry's most influential minds to explore and unveil the next wave of transformative AI technologies. Singapore will become a vibrant AI hub for a week from February 26th to March 3rd, with over 150 side events that will make for unparalleled networking opportunities. Visit www.realvision.com/superai for 20% off tickets with the code RealVision.
Hi, I'm Raoul Powell, and welcome to my show, The Journeyman. This is where I take you and myself on this journey of understanding at the nexus of macro, crypto, and exponential age technologies. Crypto has been a big part of my thesis going back to 2013 when I wrote one of the first, if not the first ever macro strategy piece on crypto. And I saw in Bitcoin a lot of the things that would give us the future of the financial system. And I was enamored by the space. And as the space developed, I realized it had become something more than just the financial system. It was absorbing culture. It was becoming the value layer of the internet overall. And if you remember my last conversation with Dan Tapiero, we talked about the scale of what's happening here and the adoption of people into the space and the kinds of companies being built. But, first and foremost, like Dan, I'm an investor in the space and I hold tokens because that's something I look at, and I do a lot of deep analysis in my work at Global Macro Investor. And we also do it at Real Vision in Real Vision Pro Crypto and Real Vision Pro Macro. That's where we do our deep thinking about this space. And it was about March 2021 that I first met Toly from Solana. I had a small position in Solana and I was really impressed by him. We were at a panel at some very private event, and I got to know him a bit and had been observing it. And then when things started blowing up in 2022, I started investing more seriously, thinking, okay, well, it's either going to go to zero or this is basically Ethereum all over again in 2018. And I continued to monitor the space when FTX blew up, and I saw some magic happening, which was that people were coming behind this ecosystem and not walking away from it. And that gave me a lot of comfort that this was something big. And so my conviction levels over time have risen in this space. And recently I was in New York where I heard Toly speak about, who's the co-founder of Solana, about Firedancer, Visa, compressed NFTs, and also some other people who I really respect, like Colleen Sullivan from Brevin Howard talking about this. And it made me really pay attention that there is a seismic shift about to happen in this particular ecosystem. And so I actually became a larger investor now in Solana than I am in anything else. Now, that's not for you to copy me or that I'm right. I could be stupidly wrong as well. But really what's interesting to me is what they're doing and how it can really help move forward the entire crypto industry. We love to see different people, different ecosystems pioneering. I am by far and away not a maxi of anything. What I care about is the entire space and the entire space going. I'm a macro guy as well, so I'll take bets on where I think who's outperforming whom and in what format. But Solana, I think, to me, seems to be winning the race in the applications layer and also the speed layer. And those things combined means it's something that could get to 1 billion people. And that's what makes me pay attention. So what I really wanted to do was go straight to the horse's mouth and speak to Toly himself and to see what he thinks is happening in the Solana ecosystem. Because, it's a decentralized ecosystem. They're not building everything. It just other people do. But I really want to pick his brains and find out also what a lot of these big developments mean. What is Firedancer all about? Why does it matter? What are compressed NFTs? And I think these things that are being built here are going to be game changing. Now, other ecosystems will bring other game changing things too. But this to me right now is my focus. So I really wanted to chat to Toly to find out from him what he thinks is going on. I hope you enjoy it and get as much out of it as I do. Thank you. Join me, Raoul Pal, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Toly, fantastic to see you back on Real Vision.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Not at all. Listen, before we start, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah.
It's going to set some ground rules for us.
Yeah.
This is one of your tweets. I follow you and your tweets. I don't understand a single word. And it's hilarious because, you are, very eloquent in how you deal with the community and how you do stuff. And then also you're a incredible deep thinker on the ecosystem you're building and everything around it. And I read these things and I'm like, I don't really understand any single point there. So you're going to have to bear with me because I think about the world in macro terms. And, obviously, as you know, Solana's been, what you've been building has been squarely on my radar screen as something truly incredible. So, well done for what you're doing. What I'd love to get, because we spoke several months ago, I'd love to get a broader update on where you are, what you're building, what's coming. Because there's some, last time I saw you was at the Mainnet event, and between you and Colleen Sullivan, who was talking about Firedancer, that was like a really kind of holy shit moment for me. But you've got so much going on that it's hard to keep up with. So let's run down, before we get to Firedancer, let's go through what's exciting for you, what's happening in the Solana ecosystem. Because for me, it feels like everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, honestly, this has been kind of a hardest year emotionally, but easiest year otherwise. And what made it hard, it was just kind of having to deal with all the FUD from FTX and kind of seeing the ecosystem have that shock. And it's hard, you feel it, right? When something like that happens, it's really gut wrenching and felt you get stabbed in the back. It just sucks. But what made it easy is that a lot of the folks, both in the ecosystem and at labs and foundation, that have been here for 4 years or so, that have been here for a while, are at that point that they've kind of mastered their trade and they really took control of everything. And it felt very different. I didn't have to I felt like the ecosystem is pushing more than me.
I mean, it was amazing. It was one of the things that got me super bullish on the ecosystem, even though I've been a token holder for a long time, was seeing how the community dealt with the aftermath. It was incredible, right?
Yeah. That was really it was awesome to see. It was awesome to talk, for me to talk to devs and for them to be yeah, it sucks, but we can't, there's no other place that we can do what we want to do, literally. We'd have to build our own blockchain, and it's just I don't want to do that. That was the response that I got from multiple different teams. And that felt good. I was okay, we have our hardcore fans that have product vision. Their only alternative is literally to build their own L1, and they think it's not worth it for them because they'd rather build product. And I'm that's great.
How did you refocus yourself at that point? Because as you said, it's actually emotionally very hard to go through to see all of this. And
I suck at this. Raj is really good. He's got that emergency room doctor, I think, vibe. I'm okay at it. It's not a panic or whatever, but he is able to just tell the story and the narrative and kind of reframe things to where my brain is not just focused on the failure over and over. I tend to get stuck in a loop where I'm kind of just over and over thinking about the worst possible outcome. That's a really good thing for the engineer, brain, because like when you're doing systems design, that's what you want to do. You want to think about the worst possible outcome all the time, but not good for probably every other aspect of life.
Is that how you and Raj tend to balance each other out?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's been lots of moments like this. I mean, every startup I think has had like a bunch of near-death experiences. So like, I would say Raj has always been able to like work through those without with like while I'm like panicking, like this is like everything's gonna collapse at the same time.
Yeah, you've got to be an optimistic pessimist. And so between the two of you, you kind of balance that out. He can be the optimist, you can be the pessimist, and you find the right solution in the end.
Yep.
Hey everyone, have you yet checked out the incredible, groundbreaking new Real Vision platform? See, we've built something that allows you to live your financial life in one place. We bring together the knowledge, tools, and network to help you thrive in your financial journey. We've got AI tools to help expand your knowledge. We've got courses and education. We've got note-taking. We've got pricing and charting. And in addition, we've got obviously the world's best content, both on macro and crypto, to bring everything together. And in addition, you get access to the Real Vision network. That's our tens of thousands of members across the world where you can connect and chat to them about what really matters to you. Anyway, it's free, realvision.com. We'll see you there. What has happened? What the hell has happened to the Sol ecosystem this year? So you get through that crisis, the community gets together, and it explodes.
Yeah, like first of all, like what is the community? It's not there's no like list, right? There's no like single org or anything like that. It's a bunch of people that choose to go build on Solana because there's something that they like about it. And there was this public perception prior, right, that like the only reason people built on Solana was because of SBF. At least that was like a lot of the, let's say Ethereum maxis on Twitter would try to spin that narrative. When in reality, like reality is far different. Like people have done surveys, like what percentage of devs had even investments from Alameda. It wasn't anywhere near even the majority. Let alone like the plurality. So like the ecosystem is big and it's amorphous and people build for different reasons. A lot of them are like almost like counter macro cyclical to crypto at all. And these are people that have like very long deployment life cycles and these long roadmaps that just have a ton of like execution. And from their perspective, like, is the network still up? Okay, like I don't really care what's going on. And these are folks like Helium, Hivemapper and stuff. They do depend on a macro, but what they really care about is like their product working and shipping, and all the stuff that's involved there is just much, much cheaper logistics than has to do anything with like the price of Bitcoin today. So there's just kind of like this big ecosystem. This one event happened and it was a shock to everyone because it was so public and such a massive like amount of fraud happened that felt like a stab in the back, I think, to me personally, to I think a lot of people like can only imagine like the investors that put their reputation on the line, like Sequoia and stuff like that, right? This is their whole careers that like or go up in smoke over this one really, really bad actor. It's terrible, right, for everyone involved, let alone like the customers and stuff. So like it's a massive shock. And like it felt like the world is falling apart, but when we can't just like do nothing. So we thought like, what's the most important thing is probably find which teams had like their runway severely impacted because they kept it on FTX. And this was something that was like, those teams are like the most in trouble, right? Like shit has really hit the fan for them. So we talked to a bunch of teams. Luckily, vast majority of them like have not. And in some ways, this is like to thank the Fed, because the Fed started raising rates. A lot of people just rotated into T-bills, like because short-term T-bills give you like pretty decent rate. the lending rates on every platform have like went down. So it was like kind of like a no-brainer for most teams that had like an accountant or somebody managing their funds. Some teams got hit really badly, like word sell guys. And I would say like the biggest one would be like Armani, like Backpack. And they did have enough runway for like 18 months. And this is something that Raj and I got good at like telling the story. Look, Solana had 9 months of runway in 2020. We had to do layoffs. Like everything was like on fire. COVID hit and we launched. And like 18 months is a massive amount of time. It's actually all you should plan for as a seed stage founder is an 18-month cycle. You have to get to you have to prove something that is worth like going to the next stage, either with revenue or growth. Like you have to prove PMF is a possibility within that 18 months. If you think that you have more than that, you failed already. Like even if you have more runway than that, like you really need to think in like 18 months terms. So we were able to just get a lot of the founders refocused, and probably Backpack guys are like the best example of this. They just the energy were think they were angry, like they got impacted personally, their company got really screwed, and they just pulled all that energy into basically working, they wanted to expand the team. Instead, they expanded the hours that everyone worked. And they crushed it, right? They really focused on growth and building a really strong community and product, and have this amazing NFT launch, and everything just kind of worked out for them. But now, at every stage, they went strategically to what is the next product that we can build. Now they're building a full exchange that is already live and had the Pith token launch. So it wasn't just roadmaps or anything like that. They really, really executed. So that maybe it's possible that if they didn't keep their funds on FTX and they had it all in T-bills and they had, the 5 years of runway, they would have been on this old plan of slow growth. There's kind of the silver lining here.
A bit of hunger and a bit of anger goes a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what we had in 2019, 2020, because we always felt that our competitors raised from all the top branded VCs. We didn't. We our biggest branded VC was Multicoin. It's not A16Z, as much as I love Kyle. And our competitors raised 5 to 10 times more than us. So we had that kind of hunger in us.
One of the things that I've always observed about the Solana ecosystem is how much applications layer stuff is being built. That, I think, is a big differentiator to me, and people migrating onto it, Helium, stuff like that, Hive Mapper, even Backpack, all of this is something different. Why is that happening, and what is going on there?
Yeah, so we actually sold scale, no bullshit. That's why. Is that the chain is cheap and fast and has large capacity. Recently, I think you saw somebody built this new NFT token standard, very terribly named SPL20. So taking a number from Ethereum and an acronym from Solana that are completely unrelated to NFTs and mixing them together. And because of that, the network did 3 times more transactions a day, went from 18 million to 50 million transactions for the day when this thing launched. And there were no problems on chain. So we actually solved scale to a very, very impactful amount of capacity. Where we've never hit a limit to where transaction fees globally have spiked, which in my mind, that's a failure point in a communication network, is when you're saturated, typically in a radio cell tower network. Hey, you're saturated. That's a bug. Go deploy more hardware. We've never been there. So everything that we focus on is not scaling technologies, it's application level technologies. And there is some overlap with scaling technologies like ZK. There's folks like Protocol, but they're not building a layer 2. They built SDKs for developers to go build very optimized, zero knowledge based systems for privacy, for different kinds of performance improvements that the chain can't do. But we're not here to build more layers or frameworks. So there's no funding for that for Solana. Like it's very hard. It would be, I imagine, very hard to raise for a Solana layer 2 because the economics don't make sense. Like on Ethereum, you have a very expensive layer 1, and your layer 2, you can at least say like, hey, we'll extract value somewhere between the optimal cost, which is what Solana's at, and Ethereum L1 cost will be the middleman that can take a rake at that rate. And that's because of how expensive Ethereum is. That's actually a valuable proposition. You cannot do that on Solana because like the costs on Solana are already so cheap. And when there are fees, they're for hotspots, and another layer doesn't solve hotspots. There's no solution to database hotspots. So like all the devs, all the investments is into applications. How do we actually build stuff that people use?
Yeah. And that's, everyone says, well, where's the use cases? I see them popping up, all over the place. I don't think yet people understand how big the compressed NFTs are. We've seen Drip House. They're kind of thinking, most people just think of NFTs as, the usual kind of art or PFPs. I'm like, no, this is solved kind of unique smart contracts at scale that could work for ticketing, could work for anything. How are you thinking through that?
Yeah, this was again, this was somebody like an idea that we've had floating around for a long time. In fact, the tweet that you shared that you couldn't understand, it's talking about compression. So we've been talking about this for like generalized version of compression forever.
Compression, all I know is from Silicon Valley, the show.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, like I think real life is stranger than fiction. It's a technology to track assets on chain without using a lot of state, and state is expensive. And it can be generalized to many things, but NFTs were like kind of the first use case that people really desperately wanted this, because there are applications like ticketing, like loyalty points, all sorts of different things that could really, really use a very, very cheap blockchain that can track assets very cheaply. So we built it, and Drip House was one of the first folks. This is the guy that actually started Solana Spaces. A lot of people think that Solana Spaces was like built by Solana. No, this is like a solo entrepreneur that was like, hey, I'm going to try something in crypto. And he had experience with retail. And he got, I think, a grant from the foundation to go try it out, but it was his baby. So he pivoted to digital assets, and he built this platform that's based on the idea that you can have artists that mint NFTs to large audiences. Like you have like Instagram style followers, you have 30, 50,000 followers. They pay a subscription fee if that's how the artist wants to monetize, and the artist just makes art every week or whatever and like goes mints it in a mass mint. And you can, make some more rare, some art, you can have rarity, all the stuff that you can do with NFTs, you can do with compressed NFTs. But it's a different model because now you have kind of like an abundance of art. You have as many artists as you can onboard with as many followers as you can onboard. You're not really trying to play games around like 10,000 NFT mint that's very hyped. You're really trying to build a relationship between artists and the followers.
I just think there's going to be a lot of really incredible applications coming out of this, because I don't think anybody's got their heads around what this enables.
Yeah, we can track salmon on chain if that's what people want to do.
Yeah, because it's a unique identifier.
Yeah. I think a lot of those applications are people imagine them, they're post-product market fit crypto. It's like when everyone already has like a crypto wallet, when Apple is shipping a crypto wallet, right? Like we're going to have lots of different applications that all make sense now. Kind of like in the 90s, people all dreamt of like, everything that we have now, but it was just too early because you don't have that like deep understanding of what cryptography is, what signing is, and custody that people do with the web. And that's a learned thing. Like people had to learn what a link is, even if now links are much, much easier and safer to click than in the 90s. They still had to learn it, and kind of their brain had to understand that mental model. Myself, right? Like people that have been in crypto, I think we all kind of now naturally get what a wallet is. Like everyone has like, even though if you don't understand cryptography, you get what a wallet does, you get what a seed phrase does. People don't get that yet. So we need that like broad human base to understand this. And then like Google, Apple.
The big shame is that Instagram didn't continue on the I'm sure they'll come back. I'm sure they will. But that was a big shame, right? Because it was so close.
Yeah. So like compressed NFTs would have been perfect for them. And I think Drip House basically like is demonstrating that the Instagram model would work, which is awesome. So like, yeah, I hope they're watching like what the ecosystem is doing. And when they do come back, you know,
well, I mean, you know the team there and I know the team there, and they're all Web3 proponents, but they just got,
for sure,
you know, you've got to have some balls to stay in this space.
Yep. Yeah, when Meta stock dropped like by bajillion% and like Zuckerberg was like, we need to cut costs, all the innovation teams got shut down.
Yeah, we're like, welcome to crypto. This is the way the world works, right? I've been here since 2012. It's never changed. Yeah. And what about the DeFi side? Because that seems to be growing fast as well. What's happening there?
Yeah, this was the kind of the biggest surprise. One is that like we thought Solana was perfect for DeFi when we were designing it, really building in this idea that cheaper, faster for finance is always better. And it's been a struggle to get adoption there, especially after the FTX collapse. But there were really, really strong teams like Margin, like Solon, like Jito, Pith, Jupiter, all these guys that just kept building through the bear market, through all the Black Swan events, and are now like, I think, at that next stage of maturity to where they're really hitting the growth, hitting growth mode. And it's really, really awesome to see. Like Jito's like numbers are like literally look like a hockey stick. So
and what kind of applications are they building DeFi world? Is it all about yield, or is it, swap it? What are they doing?
Yeah, DeFi is basically like decentralized markets, right? These are different kinds of markets, and these are markets for lending or markets for trading or staking. And probably kind of like some of the more interesting ones are like where like the DeFi application like Jito, it intersects like L1 staking security, because you could have a stake pool that now runs this MEV optimized code that can then give back the profits that it's getting from MEV to the entire stake pool. So now you're earning like normal L1 staking yield, but on top, you're also earning Jito yields on top of that. So you have like these really cool applications that are now like really tying layer one decentralization to DeFi. That means that DeFi that really depends on censorship resistance and decentralization now has like direct financial impact on the network itself in a positive way. And that's really, really good to see. So like if these trends continue and like DeFi really takes off, right, and you have trading and finance and all this stuff running on the network, you have these really, really positive loops where the people that really care about the network being decentralized from a censorship resistant and fault tolerant point of view are the ones that are also deeply in DeFi. So they're constantly monitoring it. It's not just like these two separate like groups of people, the validators and the application users. That crossover makes everything better and faster and like just more connected. So to me, like that just really, really good to see in the long term. But obviously like DeFi is the most important app, I think, for crypto. It's the biggest innovation, I think, that crypto brought to the world. It's the one that's the hardest for adoption because this is software eating part of finance that humans really, really do not want to give up control of. They like being the middleman and earning like a free percentage point off somebody else's money, right? Like if software can do it for 10 times less, that like they don't like to give that up. But I think it's inevitable. There's just no way that within 20 years, whatever, 50 years, that all this stuff isn't running on software. Would be absurd.
And I think it'll be faster because I think the financial community knows this as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not stupid, right? JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Blackstone, Apollo. I mean, they all know it. They all know it. And they've all got teams building.
If this is a true disruption, it means it should compress their profits, right? Like this is what disruption brings.
Yeah. But I think they will end up pivoting their business models because of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that these big pools of capital will become liquidity providers in DeFi world to get returns, stuff like that. And that's a game changer.
Yep, for sure.
Back to Backpack. What are they doing there? Because I've been following this story. It looks interesting. What's going on?
Yeah, after the collapse of FTX, there were a lot of people that really like, fight or flight, I think, is like what people experience. Some people really want to fight, and Armani and Tristan and those folks, I think one of the people that really like want to fight. So their initial gut reaction was like, we're going to build a better exchange than FTX or it could be, that's hyper transparent with MPC for like, proof of customer funds and things like that. So this is what they're building and shipping. So over the last year, they basically like on their Skunkworks team on running on fumes, they built both the wallet, the NFT ecosystem for Mad Lads, and now launch an exchange. And that means like it's a centralized exchange, but it's fully licensed, like wherever, they're doing the whole centralized exchange play, which is fine. Like I think those systems should exist because they're the ones that can really connect much easier to fiat rails right now than DeFi rails. And like eventually I hope that changes, right? And we have like Bank of America as a direct rail onto Solana. That would be my dream. But like that's not where we're at right now. So it's awesome to see them just execute. And like there's another team that was launched by product of engineering director at Solana, Bartosz. So he quit labs and built his own exchange called Cube. Also like hyper focused on security. There's MPC of your customer funds when they're at rest. So you actually like they built the system such that they don't even hold the funds directly. It's held by like, third parties in a multi-party wallet, which is really, really cool, and segregated by each user, right? So like you have both fund segregation and MPC for all the funds, and they're just building the technology to do all the trading and everything else. So like really, really both of them took this idea that like, not only do we not want this to ever happen again, we want to make it impossible for it to happen again.
And that's what I love about this space. Like it learns, there's failure. Out of failure is this unbelievably fast product cycle of which they then look at where it failed, rebuild, and it keeps learning. You see it all the time. It's incredible. The speed at which people do it in crypto is beyond comprehension.
For sure. This is like probably the fastest industry, I think. I mean, it's definitely the fastest one I've ever been a part of.
AI is pretty scary fast.
I honestly think product cycles in crypto are faster.
Because also, because of how you can raise capital and go to market, it's such a fast cycle that it just breeds innovation. People understand failure risk, and that net, the space just keeps growing over time.
Yeah, for sure.
NFTs are also picking up, right? I know the compressed NFTs, but we're starting to see more people building in the space, more people downloading Phantom Wallet. We're seeing a lot more of that. That's been a big spike. Why are people moving across to Solana for NFTs? Is it because of disposable income? Because people are making money in Solana, they want to own Solana assets outside of the compression algorithm? Because obviously it's very cheap and fast to do stuff.
That I think is hard for me to tell. Like I think you kind of see maybe the NFT markets are like the tip of the spear of the bull cycle, I hope. I don't know.
Well, I just think of them as trophy assets, for the typical NFTs we're talking about these days. So you make some money in Solana, you buy some NFTs, and you still get your Solana exposure.
I think like stuff like Mad Lads and like Planos, you're seeing like very strong, credible teams like continue to like ship on their vision. And that's attracting people. Like I think there's other things like SPL 20s and things like that, which are kind of like this weird inscription ordinals kind of thing. That's right. But people are like learning what the different, like they're still messing around and it's still not clear what the value prop is there. But like it's kind of like the NFT space has always been like much, much faster even than general crypto, like in terms of cycles of what's cool, what's up and coming. So I don't know. It is like surprising to me, like whenever like things pop off there, but oftentimes it's really like tip of the spear what like becomes a narrative later on.
Yeah, it's always worth watching because all of the memetics, all of the narrative, all comes out of that space, and you don't see it until later when you look back and go, "Oh, I get it now. This was, culture was moving in this direction." So let's talk about Firedancer, because I think this is another, like the compressed NFTs. This is such a big change. Talk us through the story of it and what it does.
I think of decentralization in a very kind of measurable way. I think it's very important to try to ground it in like some reality. So in my mind, it has to be observably measurable. And the point of it is fault tolerance. It's kind of, it's obvious to me, but it's just how likely is it that the network has this irrecoverable, horrible failure, right? And making something more decentralized means removing single points of failure. And one of the last and hardest single points of failure to remove is different teams implementing the exact same protocol for the layer one, for the whole thing. Ethereum has done like kind of a remarkable job there. I think they have 4 different implementations of the Ethereum layer one. It's one of the reasons why things move much, much slower on Ethereum. It's because there's four different implementations. But it's also why they are like the leader in decentralization, is you can actually point to that and say, look, there's 4 different client teams that understand the protocol and have re-implemented it, different code bases. So the probability of a bug existing in 2 implementations built by 2 different teams in different languages, the exact same bug is virtually 0, unless it's a design bug. So Firedancer, separate team, writing in a separate language, writing it in C, C++, and most of the team is out of the high-frequency trading team out of Jump. So they're super hardware guys, super fast-performing code guys. It's not that labs folks are not. It's just they also they see the start and end of the maze, and they can actually draw just a straight line. While we had to meander through the maze and do like research and R&D and build it while trying to survive. So they get to build this from the ground up as optimized as possible. And what's cool is so far there haven't needed to be any changes to the underlying protocol to demonstrate that it can scale elastically with more hardware. And what they're really trying to show that if you add cores to any part of the system, that it just becomes faster. And once you show that, that's kind of our philosophy, is that you're basically done in terms of engineering, because if you don't have enough cores today, you have twice as many cores in 2 years, and you're probably good enough.
Yeah, because it all scales with Moore's law as well, I guess.
Exactly. It's been awesome to see them really show that the exact same Solana protocol, they're able to achieve like and saturate 20 gigabit networks with like 4 cores and different components. And right now they have gotten what they call Firedancer. It's Firedancer code for the network stack, but Solana Labs code for the validation, like playing the transaction.
Frankendancer, because it's Frankenstein.
Yeah, exactly. Running on testnet, which is a huge milestone, because having the network code connected and work with the rest of the network is probably the biggest pain in the butt, because it's hardest to verify, kind of largest surface to code against. So my hope is that by next breakpoint, they have a full client running on mainnet. And once we have that, now we have no single points of failure, right? Like in my mind, that's kind of that milestone where I can say, hey, let's stop calling Solana mainnet beta. We can call it mainnet. There's no single points of failure. There's all the protocol like possible things that we could fix are fixed more or less, but there's still like, it's not done. Like Linux, hardware always changes, and like you'll always have improvements that you can make to make the software like utilize the hardware better and cheaper.
And Firedancer's speed is a different order of magnitude, isn't it?
Yeah. So like it's the same exact design. This is kind of what people don't understand. It's not like Solana 2.0. It's literally is the same implementation of Solana. It's just they're able to spend the time to take the different components and test them to a much larger network bandwidth throughput. And because they're able to do this one component at a time, they can see the bottlenecks in the algorithms and identify them and kind of restructure them if they need to, or if there is actually like some algorithm that needs to be changed, there's a process now to propose those changes and then get them accepted and get like labs and Firedancer to agree on those algorithms. So far, they haven't needed to do that, but if they ever hit that bottleneck, we can do that too.
And does that change the whole speed of the entire Solana network, or is there a routing choice you have to take?
So to maintain, like, what we want is 2 clients, ideally split 50-50 by stake, but at least 33% of them running both clients. Something like that would work too, where users can then switch primary to secondary, right? And fail over if one is having trouble. So once you have that, you kind of have safety and liveness guarantees that you can manage. So what we want is then for the labs client to then like be the limiting factor in terms of how fast the network goes, and have the labs engineers then figure out what are the limits, how do we, like, what algorithms do we need to optimize? And then as that happens, and as validators add faster hardware, you can then increase the limits that are configured on the network. Like the block limits like exist in Ethereum, there's block limits in Solana. So you can then bump them up. The number of compute units will go from 48 million to 96 million. So you'll be able to do twice as many NFT mints or something like that. But so far, we haven't hit our current limits to a point where they're economically saturated.
Yeah. And so theoretically, this Firedancer raises the TPS to kind of 10x where it is now. Is that the right understanding of it, or is it not?
Yeah, that's what they can show. They can prove that the TPS can be raised to that capacity if the mainnet validators have the right hardware. So if they can prove the software works at that limit, right, then all it takes is for the mainnet validators to go get that hardware, and that will eventually happen even if we do nothing, because your hardware gets old, you're forced to upgrade by your data center. So even if we do nothing, it'll eventually happen if there's no encouragement or whatever. But my guess is that if there's demand to the point that there's so much users coming onto crypto, coming onto Solana, that now hardware is a limiting factor, it's going to be the easiest thing for people to upgrade,
solvable.
because you can literally just order it from Amazon and go put it in your box.
And so when I saw Firedancer and seeing jump trading, it moved one step towards being able to build the financial system on this, right? Because it's the kind of speed, you guys have done the deal with Visa and stuff like that, but Visa's TPS is not like high frequency trading TPS or traditional exchanges and all the big securities market. When I saw that, that's what went through my head immediately is, oh, fuck, this is massive, because this is what the securities industry needs.
That's the goal. I think there is this dream. It's kind of a science fiction, not how realistic is it? As realistic as Google's dream to index all of the world, right? And they did it. But it is a dream that you could have a single giant, hyper optimized atomic state machine that's synchronized at the speed of light around the world, meaning that soon as some financial event happens, in Singapore, it starts propagating around the world to every other node. And it's that information is just imagine going through speed of light through fiber to everywhere else. That system exists, and it's Solana, and it scales to both support Visa and NASDAQ at the same time, and NFTs and Jupiter and all this stuff in a single atomic composable computer, because the benefit of that, I think, is just kind of astounding for finance. You see this in Jupiter, the silliest example is that you can do a 20-cent trade in Jupiter, you swap 20 cents, and it'll hit 5 different marketplaces because it's more efficient that way. So imagine if you were at a exchanging foreign currency at the airport, and you had 20 cents to change into 20 euros, and you went to 5 different markets because it's cheaper that way. You can't do that because they all have a flat fee that they charge. It's, at least $1, right? So those are the inefficiencies of the real world financial system, is that every one of these marketplaces, to talk to them, you pay a little bit of fee, and a little bit of sand like in the gears. But in one giant computer where things are like as cheap and as fast as moving electrons around, you don't have any of those inefficiencies. And like, this is what I imagine science fiction society runs on, right? Their finance on. Like in the, right? Like they don't run it in a bunch of different kiosks that each one charges
it just becomes
a fee.
the architecture for everything to be built on top of, right?
Right. Like, what do you imagine, like, 1,000 years from now in like in utopia, right? Like, how does finance run? It's in one giant computer that's extremely fault tolerant with a bajillion different implementations and like nodes, and it's all synchronized at the speed of light. And there's zero cost to talk to as many financial systems as you want in a single transaction. I
don't know if it was you said this or somebody talks about this, is a lot of people in crypto don't understand how fast and how many transactions happen in TradFi. And it's like jump trading. If you read Michael Lewis's book, what was it called? The one about high frequency trading. Basically, their whole game is, and you're not joking when you say the speed of light, it's how short and how fat can you make the fiber optic cable, how close to the exchange. And there is massive competition amongst those people because the end output of being the fastest is money. And if you can do that for a globalized financial system, that becomes super interesting.
Yeah, and those markets will still exist, but my belief is theoretically a market like running in this like hyper optimized version of Solana can be as good as those in terms of price discovery. Like, because when you have like some crazy market moving event happens in Singapore, it's still that information of that event still has to go to New York. So there's still latency from Singapore to New York for that news to travel. What's cool is that because Solana is global, the state transition can start propagating from Singapore around the world too. So by the time it hits that like NASDAQ microwave trading system in New York, when they look at a price at NASDAQ and a price on a market in Solana, they're actually the same. So there is no arbitrage for that news anymore by the time like that hits that geographical spot. And this is why I think something like Solana could be competitive with these super hyper optimized centralized systems. And that's really, really cool. Like, that means that like this decentralized technology can be better, not because it's decentralized, but because it is actually cheaper, faster, and open, and better price discovery. Like, that means it's going to win eventually. Even if we fail because we suck, right? Like, somebody else will pick up this idea and will make it happen, right? Like, so I think it's an inevitability, and like, I'm excited to be like pushing it the fastest, like as fast as I can.
It's going to be interesting to see, the big, trend right now is RWA, real world assets. But, in my mind, when I first saw Bitcoin back in 2012, the idea that I saw is immediately that all financial assets can just go on chain as a way of transacting, just as a simple thing like that, just for proven ownership, transferability, speed, and instant settlement. And it's interesting to see Kraken buy, I think they're buying a traditional equity market exchange. I just feel like somebody's going to crack that in this cycle.
For sure. Yeah, it's coming. I think there's a lot of like nuance and local regulation that you have to go through. And this has been like the biggest problem. I wish the US was just like a little faster, because what should be happening is that US should be passing like the market structure bill, the stablecoin bill, and then telling Europe and everyone else, follow these guidelines and standardize on them, so we can just like move everything faster at a much faster pace. But like, so far we've got half measures. Like, it's moving, but like nowhere near as fast as it should be.
It doesn't help that they keep mentioning Solana and a bunch of other things as things that are, securities or not securities, but, everyone's getting prosecuted for stuff that's not gone through courts or not been ruled on. It's kind of impossible. How do you deal with it?
I think US is the best place to be like entrepreneur. Like, being outside of the US is not going to protect you. Like, I don't think it matters. So from my point of view and kind of analysis is that we were going to have to comply with US laws regardless.
For sure.
Like, no matter what we do. So might as well be here, because you're at least can show them like things like Helium and like Hive Mapper, and look, be like, there's a direct benefit to your constituents. People offering a $5 data plan because it's built on crypto and it can move much faster than Verizon and AT&T to deploy 5G in like rural areas and stuff like that. And like, I think things like that, when you show that to US Congress people, they actually notice and it makes sense to them and they're much more eager to move stuff forward. So like, from my perspective, like, doesn't matter where you start a crypto company because it is global. But if you're in the US, you have as good of a shot at like succeeding as anywhere else. And you'd have to think about United States, even if you're outside of the US.
Where are the big tech companies in this whole space? I mean, I speak to a whole bunch of them and they're there in the background, but nobody's made the big move. What sense are you getting?
I think there's hard for them to figure out how to make revenues here. Like, I think there's been some movement on like NFTs, like being more open to NFTs and like Google Play Store and things like that. I think Apple's going to be far behind on this because all those companies make money from controlling content and charging for it. It's hard for them to kind of still figure out how do we make money from like peer-to-peer content. But I think they'll figure it out. Like, I think they just need to kind of like set up a model where they get a percentage of the revenues that the marketplace gets versus a percentage of the total sale. Like, this is like hard for them to give that up because I think that would shrink their profits, because why would any game like give them a percentage of the total sale versus just their marketplace, you know?
Yeah, but we're seeing, I mean, they're under threat. Google themselves are under threat because of AI anyway, getting rid of advertising, SEO, and all of the stuff. So they're going to have to change at some point and figure out new business models.
Yeah, my guess is that the threat of AI actually makes them even more conservative in crypto, because it's another disruptor to their business model, and like dealing with two is going to be even harder. So we'll see what happens. I think what's cool is that AI is a new user experience. If you're a developer listening to this, I would actually think of AI as your opportunity to like bypass the current existing applications and build a GPT style like UX app as a new meta. Like, whatever app you're building, make it a text interface. You're talking to a robot that does your things. Like, you've seen some of the success in this, and like some things like the Unibot or whatever on Telegram.
Yeah.
I think those are very, very limited applications. But like, if you're really building, like, you want to build a financial super app, like, think of GPT as your new user experience meta. And that's your opportunity to like kind of outflank all the other existing applications that have these visual user experiences that then have to shoehorn GPT into them. So you actually have an opportunity to go like the other way. And it doesn't mean that you'll succeed, but like, it's very, very hard to compete head to head with an existing dominant player, because like humans are very, very sticky in their behaviors.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. It's a whole different UX layer that people don't yet understand. The magnitude of what's just happened in AI is staggeringly big, and people are just trying to get their heads around it. Right now, they think of it as like a hyper-powered search. It's like, no, it's none of these things. It's a much, much bigger thing. So what gets you most excited about the space overall and Solana over the next 2 years? Because it feels like, the 2-year cycle, this is going to be the madness, the opportunity. My general idea is this is the everything, everywhere, all at once, where we're going to see a lot of applications.
Yeah, every hackathon that we've had, the quality of people and the products has gone up. And that's been, even like after the FTX collapse, our next hackathon had more submissions than the previous one, and the quality was higher. And that was like such a relief to see that. Like I like was able to take a breath when I kind of saw those folks. So like, and especially this last hackathon, it's just really exciting. That's really, I think, what I'm looking forward to is like new companies forming and new products being brought online. And then like, it's a very long cycle from those. Like, I would say 1 in 20 go from that hackathon winner like they have a product that might or might not have a chance at PMF to actually getting a semblance of PMF and like having some stickiness and being able to like, form a company that can raise and stuff. It's still very, very hard, but you basically need to maximize the number of smart people coming into the space, trying things and like seeing what happens.
For me, there's going to be a lot of applications layer stuff this time around. That's all of that VC money, the 67 billion that went in 2020, 2021 into all of crypto. I think just a large proportion of that will end up being applications, which will be a game changer.
I think VCs have been really reluctant to invest in apps because there's not a lot of like outside success stories that you can point to. I think it's all been infra investment. This is why you see more investment in Ethereum, is because you can still kind of like, you can say, well, this is like a new spin on a layer 2 technology and it's fully diluted valuation is probably going to be like $1 to $3 billion. So why wouldn't I invest at 100 mil? So this is like, I think kind of like the trap. I don't know, kind of, yeah, this is like the middle income trap of Ethereum. Because they're stuck on infra development. They can't get...
But how many bloody layer 2s do you need? That's the question. I mean, look, we're all Ethereum fans, but there is a limit to the number of layer 2s you need.
Yep. I mean, like the fact that we're able to build up, like focus so much more on applications, I think is maybe Solana actually has more investment in applications than Ethereum. I wouldn't be surprised because it's really, really most of it is focused on app development.
Yeah. I think that makes total sense. Tony, listen, fantastic to catch up with you, and good luck for the next couple of years. Let's see where we get to. I just think it's going to be very interesting and be not what we expect. I imagine that's the usual thing.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right. Good to see you, my friend. So I managed to hold Tony off from having a too technical conversation because he is a very smart guy and he understands the space incredibly deeply and the technology. But what I tried to do was get him to tell us how this technology can be applied and what it can do. And I just think it's fascinating what's being built. Things like Helium, where you've got a telecom network being built on top of Solana with a reward system, or Hivemapper, which is a hive mind, Google Maps. Or you've got exchanges being built. You've got Driphouse sending out millions of NFTs. And this is just the start of what the technology is going to enable. So this is a story of technology, but it's also the story of how technology can enable mass adoption. And to me, the Solana space is definitely one to keep your eye on. Now, whether my bet's right, that of the major layer ones, this is its cycle, that remains to be seen. Don't listen to me, do your own homework, and hopefully this was part of it. Thanks so much.
Join over 5,000 attendees for the largest AI event in Asia, Super AI in Singapore, February 28th to 29th, 2024. Edward Snowden, Benedict Evans, Balaji Srinivasan, and over 150 others will hit the stage, joining the industry's most influential minds to explore and unveil the next wave of transformative AI technologies. Singapore will become a vibrant AI hub for a week from February 26th to March 3rd, with over 150 side events that will make for unparalleled networking opportunities. Visit www.realvision.com/superai for 20% off tickets with the code RealVision.
Hey there, revolutionaries. To join a community sharing insights like you just watched, head over to realvision.com. There you will get unbiased insights and exclusive access to the very best, brightest, and biggest names in finance. Be a part of our community of lifelong learners. See you there.